Alright, now we're going to talk about a live versus at rest stance. We characterize all stances as being one of two things, either alive or at rest. Alive meaning having potential energy loaded forward so that you can move forward easily by simply lifting a foot. At rest meaning that you have to do some kind of preparatory telegraphic startup motion before you can move forward. To explain it better, we're going to teach this stance work using a floor tile cross. I want you to look down. We have a cross on the floor, two reference points, center line, cross line, center line, cross line. I'm going to put my two heels on the center line and my toes up to the cross line, feet side by side. Now whether they're this far apart, this close together, when my feet are side by side, we would characterize this as being at rest. Because you do have, you are loaded in a way. You're loaded laterally. If you lift your left foot, you go left. I lift my right foot, I go right. But I can't just lift a foot and fall forward because my weight is only distributed laterally. Before I can move forward, I have to do three distinct setup motions that are going to telegraph my intent. I have to shift my weight over one leg or the other. I have to lift a leg, and I have to lean forward to create forward energy flow. Shift, lift, and lean. In the time it takes to do that, the target has moved, he's attacked me, or even worse, sometimes all he has to do to win that fight is that. So I want to make sure I'm going to take some of the non-telegraphic elements out of my stance. What am I going to do to create an alive stance? First thing, take your natural foot. If you're right-handed, put your right foot forward of the cross line. My two heels are still touching the center line, but my front foot is distinctly across the cross line so that my feet are in diagonally opposite quadrants. Now, for sake of argument, if I have no weight on the front leg and I can lift it, I'm still at rest because I still have to lift and lean to go forward. Once again, two actions before I can move. What I want to do to eliminate the next step is I'm going to take the next telegraph, I'm going to take my hips and move them just forward of my rear heel to place what I perceive to be 10 and no more than 20% of my weight on the front leg. Now with that load, if I lift my front leg, I'll just begin to move forward naturally. I won't have to shift, won't have to lean, everything moves automatically. So this foot configuration with my hands down and I'm trying to talk my way out of the way, hey, I'm sorry buddy, listen, I don't want to have any trouble. This is my open baijiang, my ready position as I'm trying to get my way out of the situation. Now to turn this from the ready position to a working or fighting position, I'm going to do some simple thing. I'm going to reciprocally trade my toe for where my heel was on the center line, and then I'm going to take the foot forward about 3-4 inches to create a linear configuration of energy. Rear heel, front toe on the center line, feet across the cross line, distinctly forward from the cross line. My front foot will be turned in at about a 20-degree angle, and my rear foot turned out at about a 45-degree angle. Now we'll explain more about these elements of the stance in our next segment. Okay, now what I'm going to do is give you that same alignment of front toe and rear heel on the center line as we start, and we're going to start to build a stance out of this thing. Now, as we said, we want the front toe and rear heel on your center line, giving you a linear alignment of energy. From this position, this is the stance you want to be in to be strong against someone fighting directly in front of you. As I press into you, tell me, where's my energy going ultimately? Where's it going?
Toward me.
Towards you, but where does it end? Think about it. What do you say?
Back leg.
Back leg. Push me by from that back leg. Push me away. You can easily transfer energy from your back leg through this linear stance, having the front toe, rear heel on the center line. Very strong angle directly from the front, and that's where we fight, always from the front, right? Where's the weak angle of stance, and that goes for any stance. Weak angle of stance is cut the angle basically of the toes, or look at how the heels triangulate. In this case, your two heels triangulate to a point about right there, weakest angle of the stance. But for me to affect you at that angle, and you're beating me in the face with two hands, is going to be very hard. In order for me to actually affect you at that angle, I would have to step over here. What are you going to do? You're going to do what we do. What we always do, and we call it kind of compass needle. We're going to move to always keep the same linear configuration of energy and keep the weakest angle of the stance as far away from the front as we possibly can. Get it? So Now, front toe, rear heel on the center line, like we said. Now, let's talk about foot angles. We got a front foot angle of approximately 20 degrees inward and a rear foot angle of approximately 45 degrees outward. Now, I could line both feet up and have the same linear configuration or linear trajectory of energy, be able to press and be strong forward, but I've got now zero lateral stability. Why? My base is only this wide. By just turning this heel out at 20 degrees, I can widen the base out by another 3-4 inches. If I turn this out to 45 degrees, I've now widened the base out this much, but I've still got a totally linear configuration of energy. So by turning the front foot in, it's going to make me more stable and allow my knee to protect my lower perimeter. By turning my rear foot out at about 45 degrees, it allows me when I need to press off the toe and keep the heel very close to the ground. Foot too straight, when you press off the toe, you tend to raise your center of gravity. So we want that 45 degree energy or degree angle on the back foot so that as we close very planar, very parallel to the floor. So we've got the proper length and width of stance, proper foot angles, starting to build a stance. Now we're going to go back and relate that to the bridge. If you remember, the bridge was the strongest position of the arm, almost fully extended, elbow to the ground. For a minute though, we're going to go back and build this whole argument incrementally. We're going to lock that out once again. And I'm going to press into it. And you can feel the energy go across the scapula and sternum, down into the hips, into the back leg. And it feels pretty strong. But if I overload it, you're going to come up top heavy. And of course, why? Because by straightening the arm, we gave the energy nowhere to go but straight to the shoulder, and it can't take a 90 from there. Now, break that at just 10% bend, and now when I press into that, you feel a lot more energy anchoring into the base, don't you? And if you press off the back leg through that bridge, you can easily lift or move anything. So, once again, proper length and width of stance, proper foot angles, and a bridge, we're starting to build a stance. Now, if you were to break that bridge, you're going to have another problem in that you're going to feel yourself once again come up top heavy. And why? Because when you break the bridge, the amount of rigidity necessary to hold the position is almost like we complete this triangle, and it looks like there's a stick pushing right at that shoulder. Bring it back to the 90% extension, and all that energy now goes down into the floor. We've created a more natural path for energy to get down into the hips and then down ultimately to the feet and legs, to the base. So proper length and width of stance, proper foot angles, proper bridge, starting to build an integral stance. Next, we want to talk about this. Same side hand and foot forward. Why? Because you can feel throughout these demos that the energy from this lead hand goes across the scapula and sternum and seeks its support behind that rear leg, right? Now, all things being equal, get a beautiful bridge out here. As soon as I press into that, you can feel it is not anchored into the stance, because for this arm to be strong, it would seek its buttress over the opposite shoulder. You would have to switch to a left stance for this to be the most powerful side, right? Right. But, so going back to your lead, going back to your natural lead, now this is, and so we're always going to stand with that same side hand and foot forward. Now we're also going to talk about natural side forward. Natural side, why? That's your smart hand, right? The hand that's most intimately connected to your brain. It does all those little fine motor skill things that you do during the day, which if you had to do with your left hand, you'd be pretty frustrated and less than productive for the day. So we want to always have the natural side possible, forward whenever possible. It won't always be possible, but if I have a choice, natural side, because it's just the smarter hand. Now, going back to the configuration of the feet, I just want to talk about something. A lot of times people come into this learning environment and they say, well, they've had martial arts skills and martial art experience, and they have all kinds of stances in their head. They say, this feels like a very narrow stance. And I say, well, it's true, it is a narrow stance, but there's a reason for it. And to deviate from that makes a big difference. Even a small amount makes a big difference. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my foot over about 3 inches from yours. I just want you to bring your foot over and put it right inside my foot. So now I've moved you off the center line only that much. But just in that little movement, we've now rotated the weakest angle of the stance by retriangulating the heels we've rotated that weak angle of the stance to the front, which means just moving over that much has lost more than half of your power in the stance. So once again, we're going to be very precise about front toe, rear heel on the center line. Proper length and width of stance, proper foot angles, 20 and 45, proper bridge, same side hand and foot forward, natural side whenever possible, right? Now, the next thing we want to talk about, and for most people, I'm constantly squaring their center line because they're martial artists. And that is, the center line is really integral to the stance too. Because when your center line is straight, I can put a lot of energy into this stance, and it's anchoring into your back leg. Now, turn that center line off only 15 degrees and feel the difference. Yeah. You lose the integrity of the stance. Square it back in, and I can put tons of energy into that. So once again, center line, very important. Proper length and width of stance, proper foot angles, proper bridge, same side hand and foot forward, natural side whenever possible. Center line, absolutely essential for so many reasons, but this is one of the major ones. It integrates into your stance. Now, one more thing we want to look at. As you have this perfect stance, I'm going to begin to press energy. You're really resisting. But if I get really heavy with this, you're going to find yourself coming up top heavy again. Feel it? And why? There's one more link in the chain that's going to absolutely anchor every ounce of energy into the floor. And that's this. And you can see me over there and look at what I'm doing. What I'm going to do, same stance you're in, what I'm going to do is this. Watch, I'm going to break at the waist. And it's going to require three things. I'm going to bend my knees. I'm going to sit my butt back some. And as I do, I'm breaking at the waist to about a 25-degree body angle forward. So we're squaring the center line. We're getting a nice bridge, nice from vertical, nice 25-degree body angle. Now when I press into this, I can press everything, and you're not coming up top heavy. If you had any inkling you were going to be toppled, you would just sit down and increase that body angle even more. And now push forward. You're going to lift anybody off the floor. So once again, proper length and width of stance, proper foot angles, proper bridge, same side hand and foot forward, natural side whenever possible. Squared center line plus body angle. This is the strongest thing you can do with your body. And so now if you can learn to integrate this into your behavior and learn to deliver all your technique from this position, you're going to transfer as much energy as you possibly can. But think about it this way. If you were to move your front foot over 3 inches, what happens? You're going to lose half your power. Stand up straight, what happens? Lose half your power. Turn your center line, lose half your power. Bend, or under or overextend your bridge, lose half your power. So what we have to do is learn to, again, deliver all of our technique from this position. And the other nice thing about it is not only are we in a great stance, but that's not the important thing, because it's not in a fight, I'm never standing. So what's really important is I can take this stance and I can transfer energy endlessly in motion as I'm moving, as long as I keep all of the principles intact. I can transfer energy in motion. So this is a strong stance, whether I'm standing or whether I'm moving. I have the potential to transfer as much of my energy as possible into the target. So that's a little bit about the closed Bajong position.